Kim Hansard.
Tearsa Smith.
I can't wait to talk to you. You are one of my favorite people.
Well, you're one of mine. That works out well.
So let's talk a little bit. For those that don't know you, I would say you're kind of like a media staple here in East Tennessee. You're everybody's friend. Everybody loves Kim. If you had your own show.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, like anybody, there's people who I'm not their cup of tea. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't know not a one, and I wouldn't lie to you. So let's talk about how did you get your career in radio news? Because you weren't always in radio, morning radio at that.
No. I wanted to be a special ed teacher is what I wanted to do. That's how I wanted to start. That's what I thought I was going to school for to begin with.
Okay.
And then I realized I wasn't strong enough for that.
It's a calling.
Yeah, it was a lot. I cried. I wanted to take the kids home with me while I was in school. And, you know, you start working in the classroom and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so I thought, what else can I do? And my brother said, well, you ought to do something where you can talk. And I thought, oh, okay. So I'll do broadcasting.
That's amazing.
And so I shifted to broadcasting. And the funny thing is, I didn't make it through UT. School wasn't, I was always good in high school and everything, made good grades and everything. But I got into college and it wasn't my thing. So I ended up going to the Professional Academy of Broadcasting here. And while I was doing that, I was working at Handy City. It's it doesn't exist anymore. It was like it was a big box hardware and building materials store.
No, say it like you said. I want you to tell me, where did you work, Kim? Say it the way you said.
Okay, it was Handy City, best home center in town. I'm a how-to expert. Can I help you? That's how we had to answer the phone. And I wore this apron that said, ask me, I'm a how-to expert. And that's how we had to answer the phone. So I worked all the departments in there. You know, I could mix paint, I can mix concrete, and I can lay out concrete and tell you how much concrete you need to pour a patio in the back of your house. I can lay linoleum. I can tell you how many squares of linoleum you need for a kitchen.
I've known you 20 years and I did not know this. I did not know this.
Yeah. That's actually where I got my start in radio, believe it or not.
Were you doing their ads or something?
No, I was working as a cashier. I know, it all makes sense eventually. I was working as a cashier, and this gentleman who worked for Knoxville Transit, the bus company, he was shopping for, I don't know what, some kind of plumbing or something. And as a cashier, when somebody called and needed somebody to pick up, you know, the phone in another department, we had to get on the PA system. And so as I'm running the cash register up there and running people, you know, out, we'd have to say lumber, line 1, lumber, line 1, plumbing, line 2, plumbing, line 2. And so we're doing our stuff. And so Mr. White was his name from the transit company. And he came up and he said, who's been making the announcements over the loudspeaker? And I said, well, that would be me. He hands me his card and he says, we need somebody to do traffic for the bus drivers. They will call in and give you traffic reports and you'll call the different radio stations on football game days. And I said, really? I said, well, I'm going to school for broadcasting. I would love to do that. And he says, call me tomorrow and we'll set up an appointment. So that's how I got my start in radio.
Story.
Is that not crazy?
And it all worked out. Okay, so you start working at CAT.
At CAT. I was high atop the bank building downtown. All I had was a long church table. Okay, you know, one of those church tables that you have in the fellowship hall at church, a telephone and binoculars. And I would run around that room looking at traffic, and the bus drivers would call me on their routes, and I would write down the traffic that they were seeing. And then I'd call the different radio stations in town, I kid you not. And I would say, well, this accident is here, this accident is there, and this is Kim for whatever radio station I was on. And then one Saturday during a UT football game, Tommy Rowe, who worked at WYSH in Clinton, called me and said, are you interested in a radio shift? Yes, that's why I'm doing this. And so I started doing afternoons at WYSH in Clinton, and it was this little block building in a cow pasture in Clinton.
Yes. Yes. This is your origin story. I like this.
And so I would go up there, and I did afternoons, 3 to 7, top 40 country. Randy Travis, I'm digging up bones, I'm digging up bones. That was one of the songs. I'm not a country music person. And I'd go play country music in this field in a cow pasture.
Oh my gosh.
And from there, I was asked to do some news on what used to be WNOX and WTNZ over on Whittle Springs Road. I mean, everything just kept falling into place. And the whole time, I'm still working at Handy City, best home center in town. Can I help you? I'm a how-to expert. Because I wasn't making enough money in radio to do anything. And so it just kept getting better and better. And the whole time, I wanted to be in television. The whole reason I did radio was because I wanted to work my way in television.
I thought you always wanted radio. You wanted to
I wanted to be in television. News is what I thought I wanted to do.
Get out of here.
But then when I actually got into television, I thought it was boring.
Wait a minute now. No. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And you have so much light and vibrance and yeah.
Well, radio was so quick.
Right.
I was so used to radio. I mean, with radio, especially the stations I'd been at, because little YSH, you know, in the cow pasture.
In the cow pasture.
I mean, you sold the radio commercial that morning. You produced it when you got back, and it was on the air that afternoon.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was quick, and you did it all.
So how did you get to Star 102.1?
Interesting. I worked my way through radio, and I actually worked at another station here in town, 97.5, and I was promotions and marketing director there. And I did a little thing called Light Lunch, you know?
Like a little midday.
The Light Lunch is brought to you by Pet Ice Cream. I mean, it had to be this, you know, and I'm a hyper person. And it was easy listening at the time. So they had to sell me.
I couldn't imagine you on
I know. You know.
Much suppressing.
They did. I had to turn the lights down. You know, it had to be, I lit candles. It had to be a smooth kind of thing, you know? And they said, you can't sound like you're selling peanuts and popcorn here. You gotta, you know, it's gotta relax.
Oh my gosh.
So I went to sell billboards, outdoor advertising at Lamar. And I did that for a couple of years to get my sales groove on.
Right.
And I loved that. So then I had the opportunity to come back to radio at Star 102.1. It was Star 93.1 at the time.
Okay.
And they were going to start playing top 40 music.
Now, did you start out on mornings?
No, I started out in sales.
Oh.
I started out in sales. And then they were going to start looking for a new morning show. And our program director at the time said, Kim used to be on air. You know, will you sit in with this guy so he has somebody to bounce things off of? So I went home that night, and I called our program director, and I said, you know what? If you decide you're going to hire this guy, I'd like to give it a try with him, because you're kidding. I said, no, I'd like to try it. Well, that guy's name was Tim Tuttle. So it was the Tim and Kim Show.
Okay.
I know, Tim and Kim. How simple is that? He was here for a couple of years.
Okay.
And he left. And then they had another guy come in to work with me, and his name was Hollywood. So it was Hollywood and Hansard.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember Hollywood.
It's been a long time.
Okay.
He stayed a couple of years, and then he left. Seeing the thing here, it's like, I must be hard to work with.
No,
they stay a couple of years and leave.
You're the constant figure.
And so then this other guy came in, this bald guy. His name was Marc.
Good old Marc.
Good old Marc. And we really clicked.
Really?
Really clicked. And he's been with me for 22 years now. We're going on our 23rd year. And I've never worked with anybody like him. He's truly one of my best friends. He's family. He's home. He's who I want to finish my career with.
You know what? Okay, so hearing you say that, Marc has a certain personality.
He does.
On the radio. He does.
He does.
It's his thing. But when you speak of him, you speak very affectionately.
Yeah.
What was your first impression? Because he's not real. What he's like on. He is what he's like on the radio.
Yeah,
but not
it's
really.
amplified.
Right.
It's amplified. Everybody's personality, I think, on the radio is amplified. Kind of like your personality on TV is kind of quieter.
Oh, if only they'd let me be louder.
Oh, I know. I know. I feel like I know the real you.
You do.
I mean,
You
on
do.
TV, you're real.
Yes.
It is real. When you're on the news, it's real.
It is.
You're real. But we got to know you on radio when you were with us in so many years. The real you, in a different way.
Because you all made me. So let's talk
Yeah.
about you all made me.
We said, you gotta be you. If you're gonna be on with us, you're gonna be real. And he allowed me to be me.
Oh, I love that so much. So when did you kind of figure out, like, oh, this could be long, like, we've got a thing here. This is working.
It took a little bit because I was used to working with different people who weren't really letting me amplify, because I'm a lot. I am a lot. And he allowed me to be a lot. Not that I need to be allowed.
No,
but
it's give and take, and you gotta click. It's a thing.
Yes.
So you know when to go forward and then to pull back, so the other person can pull forward.
Yes.
Move forward. Yeah.
Yes. And we could get into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We've heard.
we could get into it. He's probably said the same thing.
I won't say.
But we get into it, and we said from the beginning, okay, we're not going to let things just fester. We're going to be honest. We're going to have our say, and then we're going to move on. And that's what we do.
The Marc and Kim Show is the longest running morning radio show in town. You all have shared some funny stories, some memorable moments. When listeners think of you, two things come to mind: your breast cancer diagnosis and the fact you allowed us in on that process. And then your adoption of your beautiful young man, because I can't say your baby boy anymore.
He's still my baby.
He is your baby, but you're a teenager now,
Yeah.
Eli. What has it been like for you? First, what makes you think, I can share all of this with everyone, my toughest moments?
I would say it's hard, and it is, but it's also easy because we've all been through so much together. The good times and the bad times. Our listeners are our family. And you don't have to know everybody one-on-one for them to be family. They share things with us. We have so many ways that we communicate with our listeners. Yes, there's the one-on-one when we go out someplace because we make personal appearances. We have remotes that we do at, car lots or businesses that are opening, or just, different giveaways that we do. But we also, when we're out at the grocery store or Target, people know if they want to find me, you go to Josie's, Target, or Food City. That's where you're going to find me, or the ball field, the school football field or anything for my son. And I love to talk to people. I'm a talker. They call it Tennessee talk for a reason, and I'm from Tennessee. So I'll talk to you. People say, well, I don't want to bother you. Come on up. I'll talk to you. I love that. I think that's one of the blessings of what we do.
Yes.
People feel like they know you, and they want to come up and talk to you. That's a blessing. People will say, I loved it when you talked about so-and-so. And a lot of times I've forgotten that we've talked about that.
Wow.
Because we've talked about something, and then I'll say, no, tell me again about what you're talking about, And, but then they'll share their story. When you talked about this, it reminded me of when I was going through this. And that's a connection. That's a huge compliment to me. I love it when you're sharing those hurts and those joys.
Do you feel like you've helped a lot of women here in town through their cancer journey by sharing? Because you really took us through. There were some moments where I was like, I didn't know it was like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, I didn't know. When I was told you have breast cancer, It was shocking. It was scary. And the first thing I thought, well, this is how I'm going to go. You know, I'm going out. This is it. And I cried and I was terrified. And I thought, what's going to happen to my baby? He was 8 years old when I got that news. And I've since learned that's what everybody goes through. And then I got angry. I had a talk with God that I didn't think I'd ever have with God. I mean, I was angry. And you go through all the phases of mourning, really. And then you get ready to fight. And so I felt like I could not go through that because I was still on the air. So I was gone for 3 weeks. Probably should have been gone for more. But I came back after my surgeries, my bilateral mastectomy, and I talked about it. And it was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But I still talk to women and men. Men go through it as well.
That's right.
And I feel like it's part of my mission. And KCBC, who went through that mission with me, American Cancer Society, my medical team, tell me that people still come in and say, they called us because you shared your story. That's not me, that's God. I feel like that's part of my mission.
You have been so wonderful with your adoption story and sharing. Because you'd be so surprised. I think a lot of times we take for granted when we see like newlyweds or couples and we go, when are y'all having some kids? And we're so quick and you never know what people are going through behind the scenes when that, door at home is closed.
You don't.
I think you've made it just easier for people to say, I don't know what they're going through. Or if they're ready to talk about it, let me listen.
We should never assume that people are just waiting. We weren't just waiting. My husband and I were married 7 years, and we had been trying for 5 years. And we had gone through some form of fertility treatment for a while. And, then you get to the point where you're a certain age, and people think, well, you're just not going to have kids, And it's very hurtful, and you don't mean to be hurtful. I know people don't mean to be hurtful.
It's not easy, though. It's a very tough.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah. It's awful on both.
But you found your joy.
Oh, in the most wonderful way. Our son Eli, is so obviously supposed to be our son. I mean, I could not have given birth to a child that is supposed to be more ours. He has been the biggest blessing, and more so every day.
And we watched him grow up, or listened to the stories about him growing up over these 18 years.
He's a hot mess, Hansard through and through.
I love you all let him call in every once in a while and do some things with Uncle Mark.
And Uncle Mark. Mark is his uncle.
Yeah.
He sets him straight.
He was talking, and I spoke with Mark as well here on Voices of the Valley. And, he talked about you sharing the story of his adoption recommendation letter.
Oh, he wrote a beautiful letter.
Yeah.
He loves that boy as much as we do, even though he gives him a hard time.
Yeah, that's what a cool uncle does.
Oh, he does.
Where do you see yourself? You're a staple here, the Marc and Kim Show, very much a staple. And radio's like TV. They have their cycles, and to last this long is truly amazing. Where do you all see yourselves going with this?
We have found something that's very special. To have a career with somebody 20 plus years and to have that trust. You have to have a trust. You have to have agreement. Mm-hmm. And we are where we want to be. I feel so blessed to be here with my family. He's built his family here. His kids are, finding their way back. He has a grandbaby that is here.
He talked about that grandbaby. You all have a lot of joy right now in your lives.
We are so blessed. Yeah. We want to be here. We're where we are. We want to be here. So we hope to remain here as long as they'll have us.
Tear up. Okay, yes.
I mean,
that's wonderful.
This is where we want to be.
Can you just talk a little bit about, what's it like finding your voice on the show? Because you said over time, you said to kind of give that, allow you to be a lot. Mm-hmm. When did you realize with Marc, you know what, I can kind of...
It wasn't long at all, because he told me from the beginning, he said, you've been stifled. And I don't think it was that anybody meant to stifle me, but I think it was what they were used to doing as opposed to what they had to work with. And it's not, I don't mean to lessen anyone that they worked with before, but I'm a different sort. I'm sassy.
Yes.
I'll say what I think. And I'm Southern.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. I'll say something and then temper it a little bit with bless your heart. But I'm not afraid to say what I think. And I'll get with you.
Kimberly Renee Hansard, thank you. I love you. I'm so grateful that you sat and talked with me.
Thank you for having me.